Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome back to the Three Buck Theater, and today we're going to be talking about the Avengers Infinity War movies. Are they really going to have a combined budget of $1 billion? That is a horrible Doctor Evil impersonation, but you guys got it, and that's really all I care about. But that's a good question. There's a report here on Slash Film asking that question. Now, this isn't a new question, by the way. This has been floated around for the last couple years. I want to say about probably 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that, reports came out that Avengers Infinity War would have a $1 billion budget. But now we have a little bit of confirmation. It says here, at a recent African American Film Critics Association luncheon, Pinewood Studios co-owner Dan Cathy mentioned that a movie is filming at Pinewood Atlanta Studios that has a $1 billion production budget. Now, Cathy wouldn't name the movie, but given that Disney has rented out most of the facility for the next year for Avengers, and the yet to be titled sequel, Avengers 4, that they can't imagine it being about any other production shooting in Atlanta or anywhere else in the world. He says here, I would also assume that the budget he is quoting is for both films, which are shooting together over the next 9 or 10 months. And that's true. No other franchise right now is rocking the $1 billion mark. No other franchise, with one exception. That would be Star Wars. If all of a sudden Disney came out and said, we're making like fucking 8 Star Wars movies back to back, we're shooting this huge saga, it's going to come out over the course of the next fucking 15 years, you could see, oh yeah, $1 billion, I would get it. And, you could understand that. But no, right now we know that Avengers 3 and 4 are going to be like the biggest movies of all time. All right. At least until Avatar comes out. And who knows, maybe the time since Avatar isn't going to really kind of feed into it being more successful than Marvel, given the fact that since Avatar came out, we've had 14 movies from Marvel. So, and most people can't even tell you the name of any character in that movie outside of Jake Sully and maybe Unobtainium. All right. But it does go on to say, still, a $500 million budget per film is far above the previously recorded estimates. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides holds a record for the biggest budget of a single movie with an estimated cost of $378.5 million. The Hobbit movie trilogy, which shot back-to-back, similar to what Marvel's doing, came in at $745 million before tax rebates. The $1 billion budget figure would also be before tax breaks. Georgia's currently offering Hollywood Productions 30% tax break on movies shot in the state. So look, a $300 million tax break on that would be great. And the thing is, by spending the $1 billion to make these two movies, because keep in mind that money right there is also not anywhere near fucking marketing, right? It's nowhere near marketing. So that's not even entered into the equation yet. Disney would probably sacrifice small children in order to get the marketing right for fucking Avengers 3 and 4. It's going to be nuts. But the Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, I did not know they spent that much money on that movie. Where the fuck did it all go? Johnny Depp's pocket? I mean, it didn't look as good as the previous films, but which also shot back to back and everything else. So The Hobbit makes sense that it would cost $745 million before tax rebates because they shot that in New Zealand, and it was more money than what it cost to film the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which was all practical outside of some of the battle scenes, whereas The Hobbit was like mostly CG. So I would like to know how the dubious accounting from Hollywood is coming into play here. But it does go on to say that in comparison, Avengers Age of Ultron has a reported production budget of $250 million, similar to what Batman v Superman cost. So it's hard to believe that Avengers Infinity War would theoretically double that cost. Well, it is. It's not hard to believe, because at the very end here, and I'm just going to kind of jump down to the end of the article. It says, but Avengers Infinity War cast is supposed to contain the who's who of Hollywood stars. Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Brie Larson, Benedict Cumberbatch, Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, Benicio del Toro, Elizabeth Olsen, Zoe Saldana, Vin Diesel, Chris Evans, Jeremy Renner, Samuel L. Jackson, Tom Holland, Bradley Cooper, Paul Rudd, Josh Brolin, Paul Bettany, Peter Dinklage, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Hiddleston, and many, many, many others. The casting alone must be massive. Most of the stars on Age of Ultron were paid between $5 to $10 million each. And now they were saying here that that Robert Downey Jr. received an $20 million up front for Age of Ultron and $40 million for Captain America: Civil War. Now, I remember when the Captain America thing happened, because that was a big thing. That is what split Marvel TV and Marvel Studios. That effectively, at that point in time, that break is what broke the MCU in terms of television and movies. That's what happened. I don't think there's any denying that fact, that's what happened. When Kevin Feige went to Ike Perlmutter and was like, we want to put Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War. This is what it's going to cost. Perlmutter lost his fucking shit, went crazy over it, and basically forced Feige to go to Bob Iger at Disney and say, I'm going to quit unless something is done. And Iger then going over to the Perlmutter and saying, Feige reports to me now, and basically fractured the MCU. And it's, honest to God, unless Feige and Bob Iger take back Marvel Television from Ike Perlmutter, it's not going to do any better. You can see what's happening with the Inhumans show and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything else. Perlmutter's trying to control that side of things. And I think he's the reason why we're not getting the crossover between the MCU, big budget, and the TV side of things. So again, I'm off on a bit of a tangent here, but I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. Is like there's so much money at play here, and there's so many egos at play, that you can see that this thing would reportedly cost fucking so much money. I mean, there were reports from last year that were saying that Downey Jr. was going to make $200 million off of both of the upcoming Avengers movies. I would argue probably a fair amount of that is on the back end, right? If I were Disney, I'm not, but if I was, when it came time to negotiating the contracts for this thing, I would push everyone to fucking back end percentage points, right? Have them cut their cost up front, get the movie made, take the money on the back end. But then again, if I was smart and I was an actor, I'd be like, all right, fine. I want part of merch. I want part of fucking syndication rights. I want like all these things, especially merchandise. Like I was just at JCPenney today, and they have like tons of X-Men merchandise because of the new movie. So like, merchandising definitely helps out quite a bit. So I would very much like to see these particular companies, like these actors, kind of doing that, because that would lower the upfront cost. The studio is going to make that money back hand over fist. I mean, look, $1 billion investment could wield a $4 billion return just theatrically, not even taking into consideration merchandising, home video sales, VOD sales, things like that. This is going to explode in a way that's going to bring people it's going to make so much goddamn fucking money. And it's a little over a year from the first one. So yay on that one. But anyway, there's a lot that's going on with this, and the reason why this is important, just to kind of summarize it, to kind of end this video, because I've been ranting on for a while. The reason why this particular budgeting is so important is this is going to pave the way for how things are going to be done. This is going to see other movies do very similar things in terms of doing these big, expansive, huge feature films that could or could not work. Because let's face it, we don't know if this ensemble is going to play out. We don't know if this is going to do what they want. They've got James Gunn as an exec producer. The Russo bros are executive producing and directing, and they've done fantastic work so far. I mean, the way they handled, Captain America: Civil War shows that they can bring lots of characters on screen and give them all great moments. So I've got faith. But this is still a huge gamble, because this will, for all intents and purposes, do massive. But it also has the opportunity or the risk to tank horribly. And if it tanks horribly, this could set back the MCU for a very, very, very long time. And we don't want that. I mean, some people out there do. DC really wants it. But then again, DC would also look at this, and then they would try to one-up their game to do something as massive as this with the next guy. Like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Just as I'm going to end it, swear to God, after this. Here's what I'm thinking. Avengers: Infinity War does well. It's coming out 6 months after Justice League, right? And they haven't shot Justice League 2. Okay, so what I would assume, this is what I would assume. I would assume that Warner's would look at the success of Infinity War Part 1, how it was done. They would go to their team for the DCEU. They would say, let's not just do Justice League 2. Let's just do Justice League 2, 3, and 4. We'll turn it into a trilogy of films. We'll make it an overarching story. We'll spend the $1 billion, because keep in mind, Hobbit came out of fucking Warner's, and that was $745 million, right? They'll tell all these stories. They'll make it this huge, massive, overarching comic movie event sort of thing. Tie everyone in to give Marvel a run for their money. And that, I could see that happening. DC is so thirsty, so desperate to get on the level of Marvel, that they're willing to overlook everything that they've done well in order to rush it to screen, which is only going to further hurt them. So that's why this particular situation is, for one, very interesting, because I think we all want to see it be successful, but at the same time, if it fails, the ramifications from that could very much impact Hollywood for quite some time. But these are just my thoughts on this. What are yours? My name is Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. Love rambling about Marvel movies, so leave your comments below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, check back often for more movie news from me. I'll see you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.